We're definitely a unique church in a lot of different ways. I like the fact that we have a unique architecture that kind of symbolizes and represents how unique we are inside as well, our people, our faith, and so forth. The architecture is interesting. There's been a debate over the years over what the architecture of our church is supposed to symbolize. So a lot of people in the community know us as the Ark because they think we look like Noah's Ark, where we've got this swooping roof line of the church and we're up on top of a hill, and so people assume we were, built to look like an ark. That might not be the case. It actually probably wasn't the case. One idea is that the architect wanted us to look like a dove, and that we would be ascending to heaven. And so the way I look at it is I like either way. There's good interpretations of both, a good meaning for both of us. We're like Noah's Ark in that everybody's welcome here to come on board. It's a place where you can weather the storms of life. At the same time, I like the idea that we look like a dove and that we're a church that's taking off and that takes flight. And so both of those images work for me, and so I'm open to interpretation. For a long time, our church has really been a beacon in Southwest Washington for a progressive Christianity and a church that was willing to make stands on issues before other churches. We were one of the first churches to be racially integrated, to have black members in the late 1940s. We were one of the first churches, probably the first, to have a woman as a clergy person, as an associate pastor. We were the first church in Southwest Washington to be open and affirming of gay and lesbian persons. And so we've kind of been this unique church that has been at the forefront of a lot of things, has been the first in a lot of ways, and has really provided a place of refuge. And we also like to think of ourselves as not just a refuge, but also a launching pad. We come here to be renewed and rejuvenated, and so that we can go back out into the world and make the world a better place.
State your name.
Carol Elizabeth.
Okay. What do you love about our church?
I think I really appreciate the music, and it has an ethos of welcome, so that you walk in the door and there are people there to say hello, to give you hugs, to let you know that you could be very welcome here. The other thing I appreciate is that there was a place for Adina and I as a couple, and that's not true of many churches. We'd already been turned away from one church in this area, and we're happy to find a place that made a place for us.
The labyrinth for a lot of people is a spiritual practice to be able to walk the labyrinth, and we have a lot of people who aren't members of the church who will come and walk the labyrinth. One of the special times that occurred was when we saw one day that the local fire department had parked outside in front of the labyrinth, and they had recently suffered a traumatic event in their fire department. And so they brought the fire department here to walk the labyrinth after that traumatic event. It was a great way for us to make that space of service to the community and to be a place of healing for our community. We've had weddings there as well. We've had outdoor music concerts. We once did a green folk festival where we had a John Denver lookalike perform, and it was quite a good time, good memory.
My name is Harriet, and I'm a member of First Congregational UCC. Some of my favorites include the elders, the people here who have been longtime members, who are 90 plus, and who offer wisdom and encouragement each and every day. Another thing I love is the children's sermon or the children's hour with Brooks. And I love Brooks as our pastor. He is a fabulous storyteller. He bridges the gap between biblical history and today's world and makes Christianity and love relevant to today's life.
With our children's program, we've got a terrific Christian education and a youth group leader here with Christina Martin. And so we've got a program that takes you, throughout the span of your life's faith journey, from when you're a child to a full-grown adult. And we have times that we mark where people are at on their faith journey, and we celebrate that. We have a Sunday when we give out Bibles to children. That's a moment that we mark and we celebrate. And so we're a church that really likes to pay attention to the full life journey and to be with people as they're on their own path.
Okay, what's your name?
My name's Hayden Chapman.
And what do you love about the church?
I love how everyone's so nice and friendly, and they're all nice to everyone.
What keeps you coming back?
Well, I've been coming here since I was a baby, since I was born, and I just keep coming back because I like church.
And how has our church made a difference in your life?
Well, it's taught me a lot about what to do and what not to do, and the good thing is I just like it. It's the best.
One of the great partnerships that our church has developed over the past couple of years is with Martha's Pantry. It's a food pantry that operates out of our church, and they provide services for persons with HIV/AIDS in Southwest Washington. So it's a wonderful ministry that they have here, and we're grateful for the opportunity to be the place where they are able to do their important work and to service people who are in need. We're just really fortunate to have such a great ministry in our church.
Yeah, and it's not always someplace you can find somebody welcoming, because our mission is so specific. We serve primarily people living with HIV and AIDS, although nobody has ever turned away from our services. But there are a lot of folks that don't have anything to do with this. I had a senator once tell me that who should he be cutting when you talk about finances? The children or the people that did this to themselves. So when you find that attitude still exists out there, we are just grateful to find somebody who is not only welcoming, but glad to have us here and supporting our efforts. So, we just had our inspection last week, and what we know about this pantry is this pantry received an excellent, which we have every year since we've been working with the food banks. We're a member of the Feeding America program. So, and one of the things that is important about that is that though we're the smallest, we provide probably the largest amount of quantity of food to people. And the things that people don't get at food banks, if you walk into a food banks try to be as generous as they can, but if you go over here and look, Brooks, you know that we have the non-food items, which people with financial issues, those things aren't covered by food stamps or things like that. So, and these are things, cleanliness is so critical to people with AIDS. So you see that we have household cleaning items, we have personal hygiene items, and we have products to help, spread the limited funds these folks have out.
I think one of the things that also makes us unique, as we're trying to be that church that's both a refuge and a launching pad, is we're a church that's really active in the community. It's active in terms of the volunteer work. We help staff a week of at the homeless shelter. We're active in terms of social action. We did a 116-mile march to Olympia in support of marriage equality. We've joined with legislators that are both Republican and Democrat to fast so that food programs for children aren't cut. So we've been able to do a number of things to show our commitment to making the world a better place when it comes to racial justice, economic justice, LGBT rights, the environment. There's a whole range of ways in which we've been active and involved in the world and in our local community so that we can not just be the beloved community within the walls, but we can look to see the beloved community and beyond the walls of the church. And so that's something that I think is a tradition that has been a part of Christianity for a long time and that we're proud to continue to be a part of. Martin Luther King Jr. is the one who used to talk about the beloved community. That was his way of talking about the kingdom of God. And it was something that one could get glimpses of in the civil rights movement, and it's something that we get glimpses of when we're involved in trying to struggle for justice and equality today.
What keeps you coming back?
Well, participating in church activities has given me a wider perspective of life, I guess. Life experience in the church keeps me coming back.
Yeah, the event with Gandhi's grandson was a real highlight for our church. He was able to come to participate both in a dialogue sermon with me during worship and then to stay afterwards to give a talk about his grandfather and some of the different stories he had to share about him. He also did some book signings, and I had first learned about him because I had read to my 3-year-old daughter his children's book, which is some stories about his grandfather, and I really liked the book. When I read it to her and had no idea that we'd ever get to have the author of the book come, it was exciting for him to then come and to share stories. And one of the things about our church is that we're a church that believes in interfaith engagement. It was a special occasion because it was Martin Luther King Jr. weekend. Gandhi was very much a big influence on the life of King. From the very beginning of the civil rights movement, Gandhi had a lot of influence on King. King would talk about Gandhi as someone in whom the Spirit of God was at work. And that was really incredible back then for a Christian to be saying that about a Hindu. And likewise, Gandhi had a perspective that was very much open and affirming of other faiths. So his grandson, while he was here, he told some wonderful stories, and one of the things that Gandhi liked to say is that if we're all climbing up the same mountain when we worship God, what does it matter that some of us are going up a different path? You know, all of our paths are leading up to the same peak. And so that was a wonderful experience, and he shared other terrific stories also about King and how King went to India on a pilgrimage to see the places that Gandhi had lived and so forth.
And when Dr. King and his group came there and they saw the room, Dr. King expressed the desire to go and sit inside and meditate. And being a government guest and an honored guest, the director obliged and opened the door for him, but she said, "It's only you, not the whole group. Only you can go in and sit." So he said, "Fine." And he dismissed the group and went inside and sat there. And so the director went around doing her work. And soon it was time to close. And Dr. King was showing no signs of coming out of it. So finally she went up to ask him, so when are you leaving? Because we have to close up and go home. And he said, I'm not leaving. And she was aghast. She said, what do you mean you're not leaving? She said, I'm going to spend the night here. I'm not ready to leave. She said, we don't have any facilities for you. How can you spend the night in the museum? Besides, you have your room at the Taj Mahal. He said, no, if Gandhi could sleep on the floor, I'm going to sleep on the floor. And if he could work there, I'll work there. I'm going to be here all night. So let's not argue with it. You lock up and go and just leave me here. And so she locked up and went. And Dr. Martin Luther King sat in that room till 10 o'clock the next morning. And only then he came out from there and announced that now I feel spiritually strong enough to go back and lead my people in the civil rights struggle.
So hearing those stories was a tremendous experience. We had a packed church that Sunday, and even though it was playoffs and the Seahawks were playing that day, we still had people come out for the presentation after worship and had a packed room for that as well.
And I'll have to try to keep up with the Seahawks schedule. Make sure that you can get to the game in time.
Just state your name.
Alicia King.
Okay, and what do you love about our church?
The list is long. Let's see what I can think of right off the cusp. I think the first thing that comes to my mind is the people, the music, the feeling, but above all of that, the openness to diversity and accepting and loving people for whoever they are, wherever they are in life, and that's probably my top love of my church.
Two of the peak events in the life of our church are definitely our Christmas Eve worship service and our Easter service. One of the highlights of the Christmas Eve service is we'll do a lighting of the candles where everybody in the church will have their own candle to light. And it's towards the end of the service. We turn off the overhead lights so the sanctuary is completely dark and all you see are the lights, the candles that people are holding. And it represents the light of Christ in our lives and how we then leave from there carrying with us the light of Christ that Jesus brought into the world. We do all that while singing Silent Night, and we'll have everybody lift up their candle, and it's a really beautiful moment to be able to see all of those candles. And so I can look out and I can just see a sea of candles out there in the congregation. We've got a wonderful choir that every Christmas season they'll do a special Christmas performance, and they're always doing new works that are quite meaningful and beautiful.
love about our church?
What I love about our church is the fact that there are so many creative things going on that lead to connection. Like today we had our Poetry Sunday, and all different people from the congregation read poetry. And so we got to know a little bit more about each person because they related some story related to the poetry.
With the blessing of the animals, the way I often think about our church and what we do is that at the heart of a lot of what we do is this belief that God is love. And we're looking for those moments in our lives where love is present, and we're pointing to that and we're celebrating that. And one of the ways in which love is present in a lot of our lives for those who have animals is in the love and affection that we have for our animals. And so we realize that that's a sacred part of the lives of many of our church members. And so we like to honor that and recognize it by doing a blessing of the animals. And so we do that on our labyrinth, which is an outdoor space, and we'll set it up as a place for worship during the month of August. We'll do one worship service out there, and it's really a highlight for a lot of people that have animals. They'll bring their animals and we'll say a blessing over the animals after worship. So we've had miniature horses and chickens, fish, in addition to dogs and cats. So it's quite a lively day when we have all those animals present during worship service.
How has our church made a difference in your life?
The difference in my life is I feel like I have an extra family. I have people that are literally mentors. I see how others have handled adversity in their life, and it teaches me. I also have support and people acceptance, even knowing we're not perfect. And I just got to join the choir, and I love that too. And it was a wonderful place that I brought my son up in, because I wanted my son to have the foundation of these messages as well. And so this is now his home when he comes back from the Army.
We've been known to have play some bunco here. So just this past year we had a event called Love in Las Vegas, and so we tried to do things Vegas style to a certain extent. We did some gambling in the form of bunco, and we had a buffet, and we had Elvis here to make holy some of the relationships here. So my wife and I, we renewed our vows with Elvis on that Sunday. One of the things that people often remark on when they visit us is just how friendly our church members are. As soon as you walk in, there are friendly faces here to greet you and people that want to get to know you. And people in this church really know how to form the bonds of community. They're people who really treasure the relationships and the friendships that they develop here. And they're very committed to the life of our church. And so they're constantly giving of themselves freely. They wanted to get involved and to do things and to have a life that becomes more meaningful and purposeful because they are so committed to the life of the community.